Hi everyone, welcome to Behind the Biomedical Engineer, where we talk with BME specialists about their experiences in the field of BME and beyond. Today we are here with Dr. Shayn Peirce-Cottler, the Harrison Distinguished Teaching Professor and Chair of Biomedical Engineering, with secondary appointments in the Department of Ophthalmology and Department of Plastic Surgery at the University of Virginia. Dr. Peirce-Cottler received Bachelor's of Science degrees in Biomedical Engineering and Engineering Mechanics from the Johns Hopkins University in 1997 and earned her Ph.D. in the Department of Biomedical Engineering at the University of Virginia in 2002. Dr. Peirce-Cottler's research focuses on creating computational models and combining them with wet lab experiments to study how tissues heal after injury and to develop therapies for inducing tissue regeneration. It's a pleasure to have you here, Dr. Peirce-Cottler. First, to give listeners a better understanding of your research, how would you describe your current research to yourself as a second-year university student?
Well, thank you for having me, Alyssa. It's really an honor to be participating in your podcast. So my lab studies how small blood vessels grow and change in response to healthy adaptations, but also in response to disease. And as engineers, we're trying to figure out what the signals are that are controlling blood vessel growth and regression and trying to develop therapeutic strategies, either using biopharmaceutical approaches or stem cell-based therapies so that we can manipulate blood vessel growth. Because as you probably know, every tissue in the body requires oxygen and nutrients for survival, and small blood vessels are the highways that deliver the red blood cells and the nutrients. So it's important to have healthy small blood vessels for our tissues to be thriving and functional.
Okay, awesome. That's super cool. Going off of your depth and your kind of depth in research, an undergraduate degree in BME is really well known for its breadth. So how did you kind of manage and navigate the breadth and specificity of BME to kind of get to where you are today?
I would say it's a constant tension, but it provides constant opportunities, both for trainees and early career faculty, all the way through more senior faculty like myself. I think, in general, like every day we have a decision. Do we want to learn, something different, go broader, or do we want to learn something in more depth? And I would say initially I'd look to my mentors for that guidance, because it's a hard thing to figure out when you're first coming through. Yeah, but as you establish, it's like skill, like anything else, right? As you establish that sort of intuition, like I need to go sideways to learn about something because it relates versus I need to drill down more deeply. And it progresses over a career. So in graduate school as a Ph.D. student, that's probably the time when I was the deepest going into depth, and afterward, after I got my degree, even to this day, I probably would say I don't go as deep as I did when I was a Ph.D. student. But now I mentor Ph.D. students and they are going that deep. So, as a team, my lab is able to kind of cover the depth and the breadth, the depth thanks to them, and the breadth thanks to me coming and traveling and having great conversations with colleagues at other institutions, and also at my home institution. But it's a constant tension. And like I said, I think, early on, like talking with mentors, later on, kind of using your own intuition. At the end of the day, though, my fallback that I always come back to is being guided by your own curiosity. So sometimes you're curious about the details, and sometimes you're more curious about, the things that are, more superficial and take you into another path. So I don't think you can ever go wrong if you just follow your curiosity.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that's great advice. It's kind of interesting to hear how it ebbs and flows kind of as you mentor and are mentored by others. So. Where do you think the field of BME will be in 5 to 8 years, kind of based on how it's grown since you first entered the field?
Yeah, well, I've said this for a long time, and it's still true. I think that biomedical engineers are really the future of biomedical innovation. In this country and across the world. So I think as our field grows, and we're still a pretty young field, just to give you some context, when I was applying to college back in the early 90s, there were a small handful of universities that offered bachelor's degrees in biomedical engineering. I maybe had, 20 options in total. And now, as you may know, if a high school student wants to get a bachelor's degree in BME, there's well over 150 different schools that you can apply to. So the field is growing, but it's still pretty young. And I think that as our workforce grows, as more and more students are becoming biomedical engineers, and certainly the complexity of disease as we understand more and more about it, and the integration globally, and how our world is connected. We learned that certainly during the COVID pandemic, right? I think there's going to be more and more opportunities for biomedical engineers to make a difference, and applying, our niche skill set. Like I always field questions from undergraduate students who are trying to figure out what to major in. And they're like, what is biomedical engineering all about? And I'm like, we're the ones solving problems for human health through technology development, innovation. And I think that, as the world's problems become more complex and more integrated, biomedical engineers are, taking a leadership role in integrating the quantitative with the, what I like to call soft and squishy biology and medicine. So I think, I was excited to join this field when I was an undergrad, well over 25 years now. And I think that I would be even more excited to become a biomedical engineer in today's world. Just so many opportunities, to make a difference.
Yeah, definitely. That's kind of what drew me to it too. Just it brought together like everything I enjoyed, and it seems like a field where there's really an opportunity to make a difference. So based on some of the recent developments in BME, what's the most shocking research headline or journal title that you've seen in your career?
Oh, well, I'm going to actually talk about it in my seminar today.
Okay.
It was shocking because it was really negative and sad news. It was about essentially a failed stem cell treatment for ocular disease. And it was a treatment that I had spent maybe 6 or 7 years working on in collaboration with an ophthalmologist, where we really had high hopes and we were getting great data in mice and a lot of promise and a lot of excitement. And this article came out in the New England Journal of Medicine, and it was documenting some patients that had been treated for macular degeneration at a different institution. So it wasn't related to any of our work whatsoever, but it was a stunning failure of this disease, of this treatment in this disease, actually created more harm than good. So it was shocking because I had such high hopes for this technology, and it caused us to really take a big step back and have to think more deeply about the complexity of the biology. And it also made us develop some new tools for probing that complex biology with more scrutiny. So it was one of those kind of like disappointments that then was motivating, because it led us to want to figure out what was really going on with the stem cell therapy.
Cool. How long were you working on it before? You said like 6 or 7 years?
It was like 6 or 7 years that we had been plugging along, and great results in mice, and it was really exciting, and then clearly the results in humans, as often happens with so many therapies that fail when they make that jump from preclinical to clinical. But I really felt it. But like I said, we turned lemons into lemonade, because it caused us to go down a path that has then since kind of sprouted into many other different directions in my lab, looking at the role of fibrosis and in vascular remodeling.
Awesome. So it's all about bouncing back from it, really.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, resilience, and just saying, okay, we need to think more deeply. Right?
Failure is often hard to confront as a student and as a professional. Can you share an occasion during which you encountered failure and how you learned from it?
Oh my goodness, yeah. I feel like I encounter it every day, Alyssa, like in both in the lab and professionally. I think failure is a part of life. Really, to me, failure is just a growth opportunity, right? And if you think of it that way, it feels like a setback. It certainly feels depressing. You have the emotional response. But once you get over that, you realize this is really a great opportunity to grow and learn and overcome and build resilience and all of those things. So, I mentioned the stem cell disappointment. I'm trying to think. They happen every day. I think in starting a new lab, this is kind of maybe advice for anybody who's interested in going into academia. I think that a lot of the failures that I experience come early on with like mentoring, right? Like, how do you mentor a student, and how do you thread the needle between being a supervisor and a mentor, and in many cases a friend as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say the conversations around whose project is this, who's the lead author, kind of like the sticky, difficult conversations that come up in a lab environment. Those were early on failures that I grew through to ultimately become a better mentor. But yeah, it's kind of one of those things that as faculty we don't really get taught, how to run a lab. We don't get taught about how to manage people. We know how to manage our own projects, but suddenly when you have undergrads and grad students doing their own thing, there's a lot of interpersonal, relationship types of things, teamwork really, right? Mm-hmm. How do you work as a team? And manage a team. So I would say early on in my career, those were kind of the daily failures, right? Yeah. That I had to go through and ultimately work through to become a better mentor. I think in today in my role as a department chair, I think the failures that I experience are they feel like they come in the form of missed opportunities, and it's kind of back to your original question of depth versus breadth. Like, how do you decide in your day what to focus on? And so I feel like some of the failures are because I decided to focus on the wrong thing. But again, I look at that as like a learning experience.
Yeah, I feel like it's easy to kind of get caught up in like, what if I did this instead, or what if I focused on this instead? But I feel like everything kind of leads you down a path that's perfectly curated to what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, it all kind of works out in the end. And I think, just being mindful of that and appreciating the growth experiences that you're having along the way are kind of the more important piece than the failure of the day.
yeah, exactly. And if you could give BME students at any level one piece of advice, what would it be and why?
Oh my goodness. I would say, I think this is my advice, not just for BME students, probably anybody who's trying to develop a skill set and prepare themselves for career or multiple careers. It's figure out what you're really good at. Like, what are you uniquely good at? Like, what is the thing that when you're in a room with other people, you realize, like, hey, I'm actually the best at this thing. And it can be anything. It can be having conversations with other people. It can be solving, calculus problems. It can be the outside of the box thinking that engineering design requires. I mean, it really can be any skill set, anything that you really uniquely bring to the table. So having the ability to recognize that in yourself and lean into it, and put yourself in situations where you get to do more of that so you can become even better at the thing that you're already uniquely good at. I think that, especially in today's landscape of biomedical engineering, how we work as teams, we're always working as teams, figuring out what is the main thing that you bring to a team that nobody else is able to bring, and develop that skill, develop the heck out of it, and just let yourself shine by putting yourself in situations where that skill is needed. I think that's really a recipe for success. Sometimes takes a while to figure that out, and back to what we were talking about with failure, sometimes you learn it by failing, right? Like sometimes you become the person on the team that has to do the CAD drawings, and you realize you're not so good at the CAD drawings. Somebody else is better, right? Yeah. And so that's okay. So, admitting like you're not going to be great at everything, but everybody is uniquely good at a few things. So figuring that out, sooner rather than later if you can, I think is my best advice. Yeah.
I really like that. That's really helpful, especially here because there's a ton of project work. So kind of like using each different experience to figure out how you contribute to a team, that's like really, really something good we should be focusing on.
It's great you have the opportunity to figure that out, because that's what life's about. You're always working, especially as biomedical engineers, we're always working as teams throughout our career, no matter what industry we go into, whether it's academia and you become a PI like me, or go into industry or medical device, biotech, pharmaceuticals, medical school. I mean, all of these different avenues you're going to be working as a team, and the team's going to need your superpower. Right? Yeah. So if you know what that is, and if you've worked on developing it, you'll make that team shine.
And then kind of to end off on a more fun note, what's the least intellectual thing that you do when you're not at work, and how do you kind of get away from it all?
Well, I think right now, at this phase of my life, I'm a mom of 2 teenagers. And the thing that I love to do is to enjoy their enjoyment when they're participating in their sports. So I have a baseball player and a cross-country runner. And when I go and sit on the sidelines like a good mom with my team shirt and my hat and my loud mouth cheering, I think that brings me the most joy, because it's seeing my kids really do what they love. Actually, they're shining in the way that they want to shine. So that's probably not very intellectual, but it's very emotional as a mom. It's a lot of pride and a lot of, you feel for them when they lose the game or they don't get their best time. But I think that's what I enjoy the most right now, is being a mom. And right now being a mom for teenagers, where there's not much that I can do for them. The one thing I can do is support them in their sports and sit on the sidelines.
Yeah, that's super special and definitely fun too.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate this.
Thank you, Alyssa. I really appreciate the opportunity to chat.
Thank you.